Do you have a difficult boss? I've worked with some difficult bosses in the past, and I can sympathise. But whilst there were challenging times, I did learn, I did survive, and today I'm here to share what I learned with you. I had a boss way back who just didn't trust me. Well, actually, he didn't trust my capability, to be precise, and to be honest, he was right not to. He knew I had good intentions and that I meant well. But he got a sense that whilst I thought I knew the job, I hadn't really proven it yet. And over the course of time, he turned out to be correct. I knew a lot, but I had some major gaps to fill in my skill set and in my knowledge base. And I got exposed by those shortcomings. There was one painful occasion when I was working on some project documentation, and whilst it included everything that this template should have, it just didn't meet his expectations. He got a bit annoyed about it, but over the next few days we worked together on the document and got it up to his standards. A few things happened in that time. I think my willingness to learn from my mistake earned me a reprieve, and I think he trusted anyway that I had good character, and he knew I hadn't just been lazy. I was just inexperienced and didn't know what good looked like. That opportunity to work close together, though it was caused by my poor performance, enabled us to get to know each other just a little bit more. I did have his eyes on my work for a while afterwards, and I was aware of his scrutiny, but knowing that whenever I finished a piece of work, I'd ask myself, is this good enough to get through his review first time? And every time I asked myself that, I'd always go and find some way to improve that piece of work. Over time, I repeatedly demonstrated growing competence, and our relationship just improved a lot, and he started to trust my outputs more and more. If you get the feeling your boss doesn't trust you, try to find out if it's just your ability that I don't trust, and then seek feedback on how you can improve your performance and demonstrate that you've been paying attention and that you are improving. I think this is especially relevant for anybody whose boss didn't interview them and they weren't part of your recruitment process, so they haven't got any reason maybe to trust your abilities today. But if they can see that you're listening and you're improving, then hopefully they'll learn to trust you in the future. I was part of a PMO team on a large program a few years back, and I'd come onto the program to work with, luckily for me, the most chilled, relaxed program manager you could ever hope to meet. Don't misunderstand me, he was no pushover. If you got on the wrong side of him, you'd know about it. But I never did, so that was fine. But there was another program manager that some of my peers worked with who, from the outside looking in, appeared to have an explosive temper. I hadn't seen it for myself, but he'd been seen raging in the open plan office at people in his team for what appeared to be minor mistakes or misjudgments. I don't know if it was intentional or if he just didn't realise, but there was a number of people, including members of the senior management, who were actually scared of him. But with my live and let die attitude, I really didn't care. Until we had a reshuffle and I got assigned to his team. I was a little nervous about this because if there's one person I know who can provoke someone with a bad temper, it's me. I had already saved up enough money to just walk away if things got outside of my comfort zone, and I guess that's an important tip. Always create enough savings to be able to get out if you need to. That's easy enough to do if you're a contractor, but it can take a lot of time if you're a perm, in my experience. Anyway, I looked into what was happening with this manager, and what I found was this. His program was the most complex, high-risk part of the whole complicated portfolio. He was operating under more stress than was probably healthy, and the people around him were making some stupid, simple, easily avoidable mistakes. I got the sense that he was really highly driven, very clever, knew his stuff, but he just wasn't prepared to suffer fools. And when things went wrong, he'd respond in the heat of the moment whilst angry, rather than cool down and deal with things later. So by the time I met him, I was actually a little more convinced that we'd work well together. All I had to do was avoid making stupid mistakes and demonstrate that I care about the work and what we're trying to achieve just as much as he did. So I made a system to help me. I created to-do lists to make sure that I never forgot to do anything. I made checklists of recurring things to make sure the quality was always consistent. And I always sought clarifications if I didn't understand any of his instructions. Generally, I tried to exude an air of calm confidence in how things were going, and I spoke positively about the changes we were trying to make. And you know what? He was absolutely cool with me. No raging, no shouting, nothing. I even began to wonder if this whole story about him having a bad temper was a myth. And when I did make a mistake, which we all do, he was absolutely fine with me because my typical approach on recognizing a mistake was to own it and fix it. So if you've got a raging boss, try to understand whether they're a perfectionist and try to create systems around you to reduce the potential for mistakes, and always be honest about the mistakes that you do make. However, if they're not a perfectionist and then go back to my earlier tip about having enough money to get out and find yourself somewhere else, because I doubt you'll ever be happy working for someone who is just a monster. Before we get to the last difficult boss, if this has been helpful or enjoyable, make sure to give the video a like. I had a boss who thought he knew more than he actually did, specifically around project and program management. He knew the industry it operated in, but his change skills just weren't up to scratch. But that wasn't really the problem. The problem was that he just thought he was brilliant. You see, if he knew he was out of his depth, then at least he could be humble and he can seek help. This guy, not the case. Unfortunately for him, the situation was very easy to identify, and basically, the whole team were aware of it. My colleague and I took two different approaches on how to handle the situation, and both could be right depending on how you choose to look at it. She got infuriated with him making all the wrong calls, being inconsistent in his interpretation of rules, and ultimately she gave her notice. She just got the hell away from him, and at the time the market was good and she was excellent, so she landed a new role with no problem at all. My approach was to seek his input on the areas that actually were his strengths. So I'd go to him and ask him for his advice about how to operate within the industry, about his knowledge on stakeholders, and so on. And I did this whilst telling him about the ways that I've interpreted and applied the project management guidance we had to work with. I think because of this approach, he started to view me as an equal on that topic, and because I never directly challenged his authority, he never became defensive, and he remained open to suggestions. So over time, I'd like to think that I actually helped to upskill him. So if your boss thinks they know it all, but they're wrong, either get away from them, or do your best to improve their knowledge subtly, whilst learning as much as you can and utilising the information and knowledge they do have. If you want more strategies for dealing with different types of difficult bosses, or if you're having a bit of a crisis with a difficult boss right now, let me know in the comments, and if I can help, I will do. To be honest, most of my bosses have actually been quite good, so lucky me. I have a theory that this is because careers in project management tend to reward high achievers. In fact, if you're a high achiever, I think you'd do really well in project management. It's a great career to get into, and you can check out this video to see why.